military order issued by the President of the United States on November 13, 2001, which authorized the indefinite detention and trial by medical commissions, not to be confused with the military tribunals provided for by the law of war, of non-citizens suspected of involvement in terrorist activities. The USA Patriot Act issued by the U.S. Senate on October 26, 2001 already allowed the Attorney General to take into custody any alien suspected of activities that endangered the national security of the United States. But within 7 days, the alien had to be either released or charged with the violation of immigration laws or some other criminal offense. What is new about President Bush's order is that it radically erases any legal status of the individual, first producing a legal, unnameable, and unclassifiable being. Not only do the Taliban captured in Afghanistan not enjoy the status of POWs as defined by the Geneva Convention, they do not even have the status of a person charged with a crime according to American laws. Neither prisoners or persons accused, but simply detainees. They are the object of a pure de facto rule, or a detention that is indefinite not only in the temporal sense but in its very nature as well, since it is entirely removed from the law and from judicial oversight. The only thing to which it could possibly be compared is the legal situation of the Jews in the Nazi lager, who, along with their citizenship, had lost every legal identity, but at least retained their identity as Jews. As Judith Butler has effectively shown, in the detainee in Guantanamo, their lives reaches its maximum indeterminacy.
所以真係一條線。大家有冇咩問題？時間有冇問題？大家如果冇問題就繼續。
The uncertainty of the concept is exactly matched by terminological uncertainty. The present study will use the syntagma state of exception as the technical term for the consistent set of legal phenomena that it seeks to define. This term, which is common in German theory, is foreign to Italian and French theory, which prefer to speak of emergency decrees and state of siege, political or fictitious, état de siège fictif. In Anglo-Saxon theory, the terms martial law and emergency powers prevail. If, as has been suggested, terminology is the properly poetic moment of thought, then terminological choices can never be neutral. In this sense, the choice of the term state of exception implies a position taken on both the nature of the phenomenon that we seek to investigate and the logic most suitable for understanding it. Though the notions of state of siege and martial law express a connection with the state of war that has been historically decisive and is present to this day, they nevertheless prove to be inadequate to define the proper structure of the phenomenon, and they must be therefore qualified as political or fictitious, terms that are themselves misleading in some ways. The state of exception is not a special kind of law, like the law of war. Rather, insofar as it is a suspension of the juridical order itself, it defines law's threshold or limit concept. The history of the term fictitious or political state of siege is instructive in this regard. It goes back to the French doctrine that, in reference to Napoleon's decree of December 24, 1811, provided for the possibility of a state of siege that the emperor could declare whether or not a city was actually under attack or directly threatened by enemy forces. Whenever circumstances require giving more forces and more power to the military police, without it being necessary to put the place in a state of siege. The institution of the state of siege has its origin in the French Constituent Assembly's decree of July 8, 1791, which distinguished among états de paix, in which military authority and civil authority each acts in its own sphere, état de guerre, in which civil authority must act in concert with military authority, and état de siège, in which all the functions entrusted to the civil authority for maintaining order and internal policing pass to the military commander, who exercises them under his exclusive responsibility. The decree referred only to military strongholds and ports, but with the law of 19 Fructidor, Year 5, the Directory assimilated municipalities in the interior with the strongholds and, with the law of 18 Fructidor of the same year, granted itself the right to put a city in a state of siege. The subsequent history of the state of siege is the history of its gradual emancipation from the wartime situation to which it was originally bound, in order to be used as an extraordinary police measure to cope with internal sedition and disorder, thus changing from a real or military state of siege to a fictitious or political one. In any case, it is important not to forget that the modern state of exception is a creation of the democratic revolutionary tradition and not the absolutist one. The idea of a suspension of the Constitution was introduced for the first time in the Constitution of 22 Frimaire, Year 8, Article 92, of which reads, "In the case of armed revolt or disturbances that would threaten the security of the state, the law can, in the places and for the time that it determines, suspend the rule of the Constitution. In such cases, this suspension can be provisionally declared by a decree of the government if the legislative body is in recess, provided that its body be convened as soon as possible by an article of the same degree." The city or region in question was declared hors la Constitution. Although the paradigm is on the one hand in the state of siege, the extension of the military authority's wartime powers into the civil sphere, and on the other, suspension of the Constitution, or of those constitutional norms that protect individual liberties, in time, the two models end up merging into a single juridical phenomenon that we call the state of exception.
大家有冇嘢想討論啊？或者問題可以攞出嚟講。
唔計閂條窗，成個身體會嘈，係啊，唔該嘈。
唔該晒。呢度講翻佢嗰個叫State of Siege 嘅來源啦，好有趣地起源於法國大革命時期嘅。咁因為嗰陣時咧，歐洲其他國家咧都係一啲叫即係所謂反動嘅舊制度嘅君主國家啦。咁佢哋係對呢個法國大革命咧係好恐懼嘅，咁就曾經聯手去即係派軍隊去打呢個革命嘅政府啦，咁所以當時咧個法國大革命政府就頒布過幾次啦，喺憲法裏邊頒布過幾次嘅中文譯做印象中應該叫圍困狀態嘅嗰啲嘅類似戒嚴令咁樣。咁其實我覺得有趣嘅地方係佢喺前佢加咗個形容詞叫 fictitious 嘅。即係呢一個係一個佢意思，即係大概係佢意思，即係話呢一個唔係即係後來佢應用到呢一個戒嚴法嘅時候，佢意思係話唔係真係俾人哋圍困緊個城市或者海港，而係我哋即係我哋恐懼有呢個咁嘅情況，所以就先實施咗呢一個嘅即係呢一個嘅類似譬如馬蘇羅啊，係啦，軍法係啦，係想像出嚟嘅，係啦，或者應該咁樣講。咁變咗呢個所謂嘅，佢都有一個叫法啦，叫 state of necessity 啦，一個嘅 state of necessity 啦，但係佢背後亦都未必一定係 遇到一啲所謂軍事威脅啊，或者真係一啲可能內亂啊、內戰啊嘅情況而頒布嘅。即係當然啦，喺一啲真係緊急嘅情況底下，佢係會頒布呢一條根據呢一個條文去頒布一啲嘅緊急狀態令，但係嗰個詮釋應該咁樣講啦，個詮釋權係喺佢哋嗰度，而唔係即係我哋都會見到，未必一定係真係有戰爭發生，可能佢見到有咁嘅可能性先至會拉落去。咁如果大家冇問題嘅，咁或者我哋繼續讀讀咁樣。
唔係好明咧，佢講1.4嗰度講 terminological uncertainty， 即係唔係好明白呢個 uncertainty 即係點樣？即係佢呢一大段1.4，即係第4頁第2段。
terminological uncertainty
係啊，跟住佢處理咗幾個 term， 跟住之後再去解釋呢一個戒嚴虛擬嗰啲嘢啦。咁前面呢一度其實佢帶出嚟話 the uncertainty of the concept is exactly matched by terminological uncertainty。我唔係好理解點解佢要先處理呢個術語，即係呢個 term 嘅問題。
因為呢一個 state of exception 佢唔係淨係一個名啦，佢歷來佢有好多個名，佢後邊有講啦，就譬如英美國家佢叫 martial law 啦，或者 emergency powers 啦，跟住法國就叫 state of siege 啦，德國嘅就叫 state of necessity。其實呢啲嘅名佢背後嗰個意思都係有少少，即係佢都係指同一樣嘢，但係佢有意思上佢係有少少精微嘅差異嘅喎，老實講。但係佢都係指同一樣嘢嘅喎。
I think it relates to what you were saying just now, like as far as the relationship with law that the state and like the relationship with law that this particular situation has, right? Because all of these terms like state of siege, martial law, it still maintains that relationship to war. But then, like Agamben says later, when he says, where does he?